I'm tapping the X card as hard as I can today on the OSMtable. Hello and welcome to the OSMtable, your round table for discussing everything awesome. I'm Dylan.
I'm Basil.
I'm Tobias.
And I'm Niko.
And that's us. And on our second episode of this TTRPG roundtable format, we're going to be talking about safety tools and the social contract. So things like, what do you like to use? Why do you think they're important? What are your experiences with them? We'll go around and do kind of opening statements. I like safety tools. I guess that's not an unpopular opinion. I like them for a lot of reasons, and it's one of those topics that I just find more and more layers to. I tend to like X-Card and Lines and Veils because that was what I came to first. I'm cool with anything. As with a lot of things, I think it doesn't really matter so much the methodology you're using, so much as whether you're thinking about the topic at all. I think safety tools, even if you don't strictly speaking need them, I think they do something. There's a phrase I like to steal from the author David Dark where he talks about expanding the space of the talkaboutable. If I start out by asking you, hey, what are you uncomfortable with? As a GM, I may never have to use your Lines and Veils, but I want to open up that, hey, if you think I did something unfair or you're having a problem with another player, that's on the table. That's not off limits. So I think that, at least I hope that that's what safety tools do. They have kind of these knock-on effects. I think one of the big benefits is they're an explicit way to take people problems out of game. In TTRPGs, we know how to handle cheaters. We know how to handle people who are breaking the rules. We don't really know what to do with people who are jerks within the rules. And I've definitely been the type that, like, if I just learn the rules well enough, I can de-escalate conflict. And that's not great. That doesn't work. Sometimes it enables some of the toxic behavior. And safety tools are kind of this way of stopping, talking about what's happening as people, not as our characters or within the context of the rules. I think they also protect the GM too. Like, one of the things I like to put on my Lines and Veils is I'm not comfortable running like flirting, romance, sexuality, which is kind of out of step with how a lot of people play D&D.
Especially nowadays.
Yeah, with like streaming and the stereotype of the bard, right? And I feel good being able to say that up front where, it's not going to come up in game and someone goes, come on, don't be such a prude about that, right? Like, I can kind of set that up. And by having that discussion early on, I can even say things like, if you want that in the game, we can talk about having another player run that NPC, right? Like, that's kind of the card I'm holding if someone is disappointed by that. But getting it out there is really helpful.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing for me, and this is going to sound weird, this is like a rabbit hole and also Dylan therapy. One of the things that really gets under my skin is when someone's doing something that bothers me and I ask them to quit and they don't, and they demonstrate that they know that they don't have to. If you remember being bullied or picked on in school, you know how this works. The kid who comes up, punches you in the arm as hard as he can and gets detention isn't the guy you have to watch out for. The guy who can come in, read the room, pick the socially acceptable target, steer clear of any obvious red lines, and just make you feel powerless day in and day out is the problem. And what's happening there is I can't enforce those boundaries if, I don't kind of have the social cachet or social capital to do it. And what I feel like safety tools do is they take that onus off of me and they put it on a set of rules that we've agreed on about consent.
well, they even mentioned, you said earlier, just about it, you mentioned like it's easy to enforce mechanical rules. We know what rolling
Yes.
initiative means, but now that we have made mechanics for enforcing this parasocial behavior, that makes it easier for both you a mechanically minded person, and the table who already has agreed to follow these rules in that framework.
This is going to make me sound, the more we talk about this, like, no, I just like rules and I don't like social interaction. This is just going to.
I like social interactions within rules.
Right. Charlie has this theory that I'm autistic and really wants to push that. I've never been tested, but I feel like this is going to end up being an example. So here we go. Anyway, that's my opening statement.
None of us, by the way, are clinically qualified to make such a test. So.
Right. Yes.
You need to roll for neurodivergence.
Yes.
It was this Call of Cthulhu. Roll sanity check.
Basil?
I just think they're neat.
Okay.
Done.
Honestly, I've been doing tabletop role playing since I was in middle school. I am in my 40s now, so it's been, 3 decades plus of playing tabletop games. And for me, safety rules are way more recent.
Yes.
A thing that I've heard about, I've learned about. The majority of my playing games did not have those. And I'm really glad they're here now, but I don't actually know too much about them. I just think I think it's I think it's a great idea, and I'm here to learn as much as talk about them.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not an expert when I say that. I think it's one of those things you don't have to know a lot about because they're pretty much like, hey, here's a set of rules for not being dicks to people.
Well, and it's a thing where this is a social game. You are talking to people, you're interacting with people, you're creating stories together as a cooperative unit. And different people have different play styles. Sometimes they mesh well, sometimes it's more like oil and water. And the more you can cut that off at the pass, the better everyone is off in the long run.
Yeah. And yeah, I can definitely tell that when I was playing in college, I lacked a lot of emotional intelligence. I was big into like the 5 geek social fallacies, and learning about safety tools is like, oh, okay, I can kind of relax now. Almost. Tobias?
Okay, so I'm coming at this not so much for the safety tools aspect. I've used Xcard at a few like public games I've had at game stores, but like they've never really come up. I do agree with you, Dylan, that simply having them, even if you don't feel like you'll need them, does help people. Just having the X card there to tap if you need. And I guess maybe in a second we can talk more about what these terms are, because I'm not even sure what lines and vills are, if I'm being honest. And I've heard you use that term.
Yeah.
But like we can kind of break down what those are in a second. But really, I guess what I'm coming to the discussion for is more that social contract aspect. I'm a firm believer that session 0 is probably the most important session you do. Even if you've got a group of people you've been gaming with for a bit, I feel like being able to set the expectations, both the tone of the game, both, the sort of what people are going to be doing in the game, but also things like, okay, what time are we meeting? Are we meeting weekly? What day of the week? What's the food situation going to be like? Are we meeting at the DM's place? Are we meeting at somebody else's place? Are we meeting in a public space? A lot of those, like you said, in your college years, your high school years, so much of that was assumed. And so much as veterans, we assume this is how D&D is played. And you assume there's going to be Monty Python jokes constantly. You assume people are going to reference the old, roll to see if I'm getting drunk. Those old classic things, if there are any girls there, I want to do them. But that doesn't really mesh with the way not everyone plays the game, especially the newer audience here. So, when you're with people you play with a long time, okay, you assume those jokes, those things. But when you're playing with new people, Dylan, I know you got a really big game full of people that, maybe you've barely met in real life, and you have to sort of determine that information on the fly as you go, as you run these games online. So doing things like session 0 helps set the tone, lets everyone know what they're expected to do, and expected to participate in, while, like you said, sort of setting that impetus off you to, on top of being a referee, on top of being a game master and a storyteller, having to herd cats and having to babysit children for 3 hours every Friday. They're all adults here, and let them, okay, this is what we've agreed to do it.
I don't know that I would call it herding. Like it felt like herding cats when I was first setting it up. But once you get people into a pattern, yeah. But no, I understand what you're saying. And we can come back to, I want to come back to both session 0 and kind of how you envision it, like how we've used it or experienced it, and how, you seem to have a lot more thoughts about that side of things.
Sure.
Niko?
I like a point that Tobias mentioned about, I guess, helping a lot of like newer audiences are a bit more in touch with, I guess, emotional consciousness of going into games and making sure that they are aware of each other. And I feel like I might be the most newest to tabletop RPGs, and that's for playing for like 15, 16 years now. So we might be doing a disservice to ourselves of not having anyone newer on the show.
Yeah, that's fair.
But we're the group that we are. I like safety tools as a concept. I do like as a broad concept in terms of the system that you use. If you use an actual card system like an X card at a table, or if pre in a session 0 or at some point do list out your lines and veils for the DM and the rest of the players to already take that into account as the game is going on, or just some other form of making sure everyone knows, here's the stuff I don't want to cover, or I want to cover very briefly and not really dwell on. I think that's one of the best contributions to D&D and tabletop gaming in the last, pretty much since, people were rolling dice and character sheets. It is incredibly useful to be aware of your other players and what their concerns are, because Dylan, you're talking about maybe not having that emotional intelligence when you started playing. I mean, I don't know how I would have qualified my emotional intelligence when I started playing in my 20s, but it helps you gain that and practice emotional intelligence by being aware of everyone else. It's a form of practicing empathy, and that is great in gaming and even better to carry over into real life. So I think it's a really useful tool. That said, personally, I haven't had a lot of instances where it's popped up a need. Probably the last 3 or 4 ongoing games I've introduced, like, tell me what your lines and veils are, tell me what the stuff you don't want covered and things are. And then after that, and partially because I am very familiar with my players, when I'm running games, so usually definitely people I've known for a while, doesn't come up. I think mostly it could be because we've already front loaded the work, that we know, hey, I'm not even going to bother with any of this. If it's a veil area where it's like, this will fade to black, don't really touch on it much, a lot of times I might just skip it because it's like, oh, you know what, I not integral to my plot. I don't have to cover any of that.
Yeah.
So I think it is helpful to know. And so that's, to Tobias's point, session 0, getting all that stuff out of the way right off the bat will help you have a smoother gameplay experience because everyone is on the same page. And I know I've played in games where I was not on the same page as some of the players. Like, it was like, I'm not playing the game that they want to play, or everyone here is not playing the game I want to play. So had we had a better conversation, it would have done better. Now, one caveat or one issue I have with the session 0, and it's not really with the thing itself, the session 0 itself. I find that they really only work well for like an ongoing planned campaign.
Yeah.
I would really want to hear from Dylan's experience as someone who's done a lot of convention play and game shop plays. Like, that's not an area where you have session 0s. That's not an area where you get a lot of time to go into veils and lines and veils and all that stuff. You pretty much have to hop and go. Like, I've gone to library games that would just drop into play as a player, and like there have been things that, like, I've had one game, it's like, you know what, I'm not playing with this DM anymore. I'm leaving the library, and I'm not making a stink about it. I finished the session and stopped going to the rest of that group because, like, they did stuff I didn't like, and this is a public show, so I was like, I'm just gonna be done. But we didn't have an avenue to discuss what we wanted to be covered or not covered.
Yeah. And to your point, I think if someone is doing something bad enough that you have to leave, they're probably not going to want to do this, if that makes sense, right? Like it's almost a test in and of itself of like, if you get defensive about having this discussion when it's safe for you to kind of say whatever you feel about these things, you're probably not going to handle it well.
I will say the bit, if any of our listeners ever go to like, I'm going to go play in a game shop or comic shop or library or something. I mean, the great thing about doing that is you usually can just leave. Like maybe stay through the end of the session if that's your thing, but otherwise you could just say, it's like, hey, I got to bounce, and then never talk to any of them ever again. That's the benefit of that kind of anonymity of public gameplay, because it's like the DM in question just made a pronouns joke. And I'm like,
yeah.
That's BS. I'm just like, and so it was like, okay, I clocked that. I'm not going to make a stink about it. I finished the session and then never went back, and that was it. So
right.
Feel free to walk away.
I don't want to say I've had mixed experiences, but playing at a game store, I'm playing in 2 games that rotate out week to week. And in both cases, I came in mid-game, so there was never really a session 0. And we'll talk about things that happen if there's a problem, but that is tricky because people will rotate through. I've had games where it's like clear that we've got one group of people who want to do like the puzzle solving and adventure stuff, one group of people who aren't as invested in that. And it's like you're kind of having to figure out how to balance this real time. I can think of, I had a case where there was a disagreement between 2 players, and I don't think I handled it well, because one of the guys came to me and like, hey, what do you think about this? And none of us had been through that session 0, I don't think. So we didn't have that context.
I think of the last big game I was in where, well, maybe not the last big game, but one about 10 years ago, I jumped in the middle of a Pathfinder game that had been going. And not only that, but I took the reins of somebody else's character. Like somebody had dropped out for time commitments. So I took their character because they didn't want to, like, they just wanted to keep rolling with this one dwarf ranger that the guy had rolled. And so I took the reins of somebody's character. And these are people that, like, I just moved to Asheville, so I didn't know anybody except the DM that, like, I knew before, but I had never really met these people before. I don't think it went to hell quickly, but it was pretty obvious as time went on. Pathfinder is not a system I was familiar with, for instance. And then that in the middle of meeting a bunch of new people and a new system and a new character and a game that I wasn't used to. I think maybe I lasted a month or 2 before I think it was like, yeah, this isn't working out. I wasn't really having fun. I think the other players didn't really jive well with me. And, it's fine, whatever. Like, people with different strokes. But, like, it's a perfect situation. It's like, man, if I had had a normal entry, if we had a session 0, we could have decided this a lot sooner,
Yeah.
I could have walked away. I could have decided that, hey, this just isn't for me, so I'm going to do something better with my time.
Yeah. I guess to back up, we mentioned like wanting to define what these things are. The X card is very simply, you have a card on the table with an X on it. If someone has a problem with what's going on, they tap the X card. That's a signal, hey, we're going to take a break. We're going to talk about this however they're comfortable, and then we resolve it.
I think the way I heard it was like, we don't even like discuss it. It's just like, if the hard subject gets brought up, okay, we're just going to steer clear of it for now, bring it up later, but like no one's going to argue about it. That's just straight up. Yes. We're not going to go down this road.
Yeah.
No questions.
I've seen a version of this at like MomoCon. At all of their tables, they've got like green, yellow, and red kind of stoplights that people can kind of push forward. Lines and veils is the idea that you have certain things, lines, that you do not want to show up at all in a game.
Don't cross those lines.
Don't cross those lines, yeah. Veils are things that you can have kind of obliquely, you can fade to black, but you don't want to discuss in detail. And I'm going to be honest, like having used both of those, I don't think I've ever come across a situation where I've actually needed either one of them, even at conventions. And I don't necessarily know what that says. Like, I know in our Friday night game, we have spiders and like tight spaces as lines. And I try to steer clear of them. Honestly, more what happens is I'm like, oh, you haven't really thought about that. That's never come up. Gosh, did I forget and like include something that bothered someone? But yeah, like I've never actually had to use them. So, I'm not going to say I've been using them right even.
Well, I think it was like what I mentioned earlier about how like, you may not intentionally be like leaving those out of your planning, but you are aware of what those lines are. And so
Yeah.
when you are planning your games, you just don't consider those as options. Like subconsciously, like like your spiders, like, all right, fine. I can just never use spiders. I don't need spiders at all. There's nothing spider relevant in that has to be used in spiders. Like even if I ended up going to Menzo Baranzan in the Underdark, and it's like I could just change all these to underground crabs or something.
Right. Yeah.
His dogs.
And
dogs.
honestly, if someone came up and said, oh, you use this and you shouldn't have, like I've been, oh yeah, sorry, my bad. Like I think that's also an option. It's not a way to trip you up. It's like, oh yeah, we did have that discussion. Oops, my bad.
You go to like tight spaces of claustrophobia. If you're like 4 sessions in and something it happens and it's starting to trigger somebody, they're probably gonna be a little flustered, embarrassed to mention that. Like, hey, I know that it's gonna be weird, but I'm not okay with this, and it's hard for me to describe. But like it's easier to have a discussion if you've had it beforehand. It's like, hey, so we discussed this. Oh shit, my bad. Yeah. Okay, well let's walk it back then. It's already been discussed, so no questions. Let's do it. Whereas a couple sessions in, suddenly it's like, wait, what are you saying? You don't like me to describe hallways? What? It can be awkward if you're in the middle of the thing.
Well, I will admit, like early on, it was more of a conscious thought. Now it's just like, that never really comes up. Some of these things don't even fit with the way I GM anyway. I'll also say I'm a bit of a hypocrite on session 0 because the games I've run, like I've done really compact session zeros where we just talk about lines and veils. We just introduce characters. The scheduling in most cases I've done by survey. I haven't been like opening it up to a lot of those sorts of questions about how we play. And if I'm honest, like we just had someone drop because he was like, we were off a week. He set in with a game that one of his other DMs is playing. He's like, yeah, they just have more player engagement. And I'm like, I kind of feel bad about this, but it is what it is. You can't necessarily control for that.
This is a whole another episode, I think, about game length and why forever games maybe aren't for everybody.
Yeah,
no, you've been doing this for like 2 years, though, right? Like you've had your weekly game for like 2 years now. So it's been a while.
I think we're about 50 sessions in, so yeah, give or take it. Well, probably a little more than a year. Again,
Basil's like, think about it.
Same problems that I've had in game store games where like as the group shuffles through, people want different things. It's kind of hard to get on the same page when no individual incarnation of that group has stopped to sit down and talk about what they're doing. And why would they? Because they're changing.
Well, it sounds like what might be useful for, like, especially in those situations, even situations like in our Friday night game where we've changed the cast a little bit. Maybe there should also be sessions 0.1s, 0.2s, where people, you reconnect and go, okay, so we've been playing for a minute now and we haven't really talked about this, but is there anything we need to change? Has any lines been crossed? Are there any veils that we need to talk about now that we've been playing? Is this schedule still good? Is, just to check in with everyone, just to make sure everything is running smoothly.
Yeah, or just like I haven't thought to do it in a while, but like Stars and Wishes is really good for like the lower, like the less important stuff. Hey, are you happy with what's been going on? What would you like to see more of? And that's an easy way to do it. And I just haven't thought to do it.
No, yeah. I mean, to go back, I think, Niko said way back that if you're doing like a small game, a library game, a FLGS game, or even just a one shot, then yeah, session 0 is kind of, by that point, you're already just jumping in and out pretty easily. When I think of session 0, it is specifically more, okay, we're going to do a campaign, whether that is a forever game, a full 1 to 20 huge epic thing. Maybe we're just going to run, an adventure path, or even just a single adventure out of the adventure path. Maybe it could be like, hey, I want to play D&D. There's 3 of you here in this voice call. Let's play D&D sometime. Let's decide who's going to be the DM. Let's decide Is it going to be a goofy game? Is it going to be a drama, court drama sort of game? Is it going to be sci-fi, weird, just whatever book, just splat books, throw it all in the blender. Let's just have a crazy time. Level 20 epic, all the rules, just fucking go ham on that. Like, those are all things you can decide. Now, you don't have to decide in advance, because so much of my problem with D&D, this is my Tobias therapy session, is that so much is put on the DM
Again,
to do
we're
everything.
Not, qualified for therapy either.
Well, what really
internet.
grinds my gears,
anyone can give therapy.
What really chaps my ass is like the DM has to do everything. Like, I'm going to decide I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have a book, and you have to stick to this book, and I'm going to tell you when you have to show up, and I'm going to fight you every step of the way because I'm the person in charge of everything. You sound like you want to say something, Dylan.
I had that experience like probably over a decade ago. We had some more roommates then. We all played D&D back in college. Everyone was like, hey, let's play a game. I kind of became the DM by default. And after like every session, people would go, when are we going to play again? And that really killed it for me, because it's like, I need someone to take on that role. Like, I can't, this can't be like a parent-child relationship. And that's the danger, right? Is it becomes this, you do everything. This is your responsibility. I'm just going to, show up. And
the thing I want more than anything is to new players to DM. DMing's not hard. It really isn't.
Yeah.
Anyone can do it. Anyone can game master, storytell, dungeon, whatever term you want to use. But because the culture broadly, we don't talk about things in a session 0, we used to expect the DM to do everything. It is hard to new players to do, but it shouldn't be. And that's the one thing I want to impress the one thing I want to do before I die is impress upon the gaming populace that DMing isn't that hard. Anyone can do it.
I'm really interested to see. We're on the cusp of a new Wizards of the Coast D&D starter set coming out in like a month or two, and it's very prop heavy, and I think supposed to be geared towards better coaching. How to DM, and their starter sets have been incrementally getting better and better since Lost Minds and Found Over, and I want to see that, because that's really yes, we could take that on as a community on trying to get more of our players and more new people to DM, but a lot of impetus has to be on the game manufacturers as well. It's like, you have to foster an audience that not just wants to play as players, but also wants to help craft the story and be dungeon masters. My personal style, I like regular involvement and engagement, including outside of the game. I ran a campaign a few years back, probably like wrapped up in like 2018 or 19, and it was like pulling teeth. It was every time I asked my players, like, hey, give me some feedback, or what do you think about this, or what do you want out of the campaign, very much a stars and wishes kind of thing. It felt like I was giving homework, and I was like speaking to a wall a lot of times. And sometimes I'd get some feedback back, but some of my players wouldn't, because they just want to show up and play their thing, play their character, and then come back in 2 weeks and do it again, and so on. And like, that's not my preference. Like, I'm in a game right now as a player, and we just gotta keep. And so a couple of my other players and I have been just like, it's like, okay, I've got this room, this is gonna be this, it's gonna be this, and we're talking about like all the stuff we want to do in our character stuff, like outside of game, which thanks to the internet is a lot easier now, because we're on a Discord and do it. And when I'm a player, or when I'm a DM, that's what I want my group to do, is like, be really excited, be really invested, tell me what you want, have you guys plan, and I'll watch what you're doing, and all that stuff. And that's a session 0 topic. It's like, hey, players, how invested do you want to be? Like, do you want to do stuff out of the table, or do you just want to keep the gameplay when we're together once every week or two, and not think about the game outside of that? Because once I'm aligned and knowing what you as players want to do, I as a dungeon master, like, then that helps me kind of rethink. It's like, okay, I don't have to worry about or plan for or hope for out of game stuff to keep going. I will shut off there and do other stuff, other creative outlets. So yeah, session 0 helps kind of set what kind of gameplay overall, not just the theme, but also how everyone wants to play. And very important on that front. I didn't realize I was going to a session 0 like topic on that, but I circled around to it.
It's interesting too, because I think that's still a valid way to play. Like, I've had that in one of the game store, and actually both of the game store games to an extent, it's like, I don't want to be the character that necessarily drives the storyline. I want to be the the healer that kind of holds the party together. And I think it's good to have that discussion, because I know on the other side of the screen, when I'm DMing and people are not really as responsive, I'm like, I'm not giving them what they want. I'm obviously doing something wrong. And it's like, no, that's not necessarily it. Yeah. And if we can have that discussion, that makes me feel better. That kind of lets me zero in on what I need to be doing.
Yeah, I mean, it gives everyone a chance to talk about what they want, both the DM and the players. It's like Niko was saying, like, it's perfect. If you just want to have a beer and pretzels game, you show up every week and hang out with your friends, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to be an acting and coming up with background and stuff if you don't really want to. As a DM, if you want to just however what your DMing style is, you can communicate that then and tell people, okay, well, I do want some buy-in from you, week to week, or even on the sidelines. Even the players that aren't really up for that, like, hey, I kind of want at least a little bit from you. Is that okay? Like, can we do that? Maybe they want to, but just never felt like they had the chance. So saying flat out, hey, like, I expect you to, for you have a keep. I kind of want you to have a little bit of say in what this happening in this keep, even if that's not usually your preferred play style. Just give me something, even just think about it.
There's something here that I think ties back into some of the things I was saying about safety tools at the beginning, where I think in a lot of things like this, we kind of want to put people on the spot. We feel like if we put people on the spot for things, that we're engaging them. And depending on what your personality is, that may make you feel very uncomfortable. I know, like, I start getting real nervous when there's audience participation in something. And so I think having safety tools, I think having session 0 to discuss what you want, or just check-ins to find out what you want as a player, you can give that to the people who want it. You can avoid giving that to the people who don't and want to sit back. And you can kind of calibrate, because that's as important as engaging people, like not engaging them in ways that make them feel uncomfortable. I think, Tobias, you had said in your opening about social contracts, session 0. Is there anything else you want to add there?
I mean, I think we mostly covered it. I think even just covering logistics is important. It seems really silly, but like you said, like, you at the end of every session, you were expected to plan the next thing. And I had that experience in college. Sure, like, okay, well, when are we meeting next? You decide. When are you free? Next. But now that we're adults, like, I ain't got time for that. To be frank, we're gonna push in a little Final Fantasy 14 here. But the reason, like, my static works is we've decided every Thursday and Saturday that's our static nights.
Yeah.
Like, we don't bicker about it. We don't decide. And people miss. That's fine. But it's like, okay, we have a solid thing that we've decided in advance. We know that Dylan has his game every Friday, and that's here in the Discord. That's the thing that happens. And I don't, there's certain things people can miss and things can change, but like, logistics is important, more important than people think. And we mentioned things like food. A lot of times the dinner happens before or during. Maybe somebody's allergic to something. Of course, that's probably going to come up beforehand, but maybe it didn't. Maybe you want to rotate who's responsible for bringing dinner that night. Again, really maybe silly to think about, I guess, tangential to that, but it's really not. Like, I think that really helps keep people, their expectations for what's going to be happening during these, 3 to 5 hour sessions we're having.
A huge part about having a regular game night, board gaming, tabletop role playing, anything, is building that momentum. Just like doing it day in and day out week in and week out until it becomes just normal. Yeah, not every day. What am I? You don't play 24 hours a day. What are
ABP, always be playing.
But people think about, they want their dream game or they want their dream game night, and it's like, no, start small, and the small wins are going to accumulate.
And even to go back to things like the forever game, maybe you want a game that just runs forever. Every Friday night, we're going to keep doing something, whatever it is. Maybe you just want to run a short 3-shot or adventure path book. Like, deciding then is important, because some people expect a game. I've had several times where we decided, okay, we're going to play 7C, and we play a little adventure in 7C. It's like, okay, what's happening now, storyteller? What are you doing now? It's like, I didn't sign up for it, but I guess now I've dedicated my Thursday nights to 7C forever until it fizzles out.
Right.
And that's the problem. Like a game fizzling out is not an ending. Like that, it feels bad when a game fizzles out. So by having an end and establishing what the end is going to be in session 0, that helps people come to, okay, I want this character growth to happen at the end of, I don't know, 20 sessions or whatnot. Like the whole story has to be told there. Another thing I've done in the past is even help build parties there. So sure, in some systems like D&D, it can be a pain in the ass to build a character there in front of everybody.
Yeah.
But it's something like, all right, come up with a concept. Let's all discuss our concepts right now. And once you have a concept, pass your character sheet to the person sitting to your left. That person now gives me a fact about how they know your character before the game happened. Now take your character sheet back, pass it to the right. That character is related to you, and another character has, something on you, another fact. Decide it. And a game like, Dungeon World and certain Apocalypse games does have those bonds sort of built into the game mechanics. But like that allows you to do stuff like that before the game happens. There are other role-playing opportunities that can be decided that aren't, okay, let me give you a 5-page backstory about my special character.
Yeah.
And how they're special and different than everybody else. They also let you engage with your party members in a way that's not, all right, I showed up the table and we have like 5 different characters from crazy splat book rules with different special classes and races, and they all supposed to be cohesive somehow, when we could have discussed that beforehand about how this party is a party. So yeah, there's a lot of things. Like the safety tools are certainly an aspect of that, especially if it's a game that you're running for a long time. Things like lines and bills in particular can be established beforehand. But there are also other things that I think are just that work better for a long-term campaign in a session 0. And I would encourage everyone that wants to play long-term to do such a thing. Even though it feels like a waste of a night to not play,
Yeah.
you really are playing in that time.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the one of the hesitations that probably some players have going, or some players and DMs have going to a session 0, is you want to start your session, you want to start the campaign on a high note, or at least you want to start playing, and then it's like, what do you mean we don't even get to play in our first session? It's like we're all talking and stuff. I do think if you have time, if you have progressed at a point where you have characters in a session 0, probably maybe running them through a mock combat or something to at least kind of training wheels is probably not a bad way to do it. The last campaign I did, I did that. We got together, ran our characters. I also Google form, like, everyone fill this out, let me know, like, lines and veils and stuff like that. So I had some of that stuff taken care of. And then we ended the game with like, okay, we're going to have here's a quick scenario, your characters, great. Now you're level 2. Then we're going to have a full session on the next one. I do think like Basil's idea of checking in of session 0.1 to kind of have a resync with everyone is something that if you are trying to do a ongoing campaign, or at least an ongoing group, be smart to do, because you might find that some players do want to dip out or are wanting to change. And I'm sure a lot of us here and a lot of players and DMs love the idea of like a forever campaign or that ongoing, like, we're going to do year, 2 year, 3 year plus epic campaign, like, story that we are putting together. But you might find that doesn't work. And you might find that out a month in, you might find that out 6 months in, you might be a year and a half in and go, look, I got to tap out. And so checking in every so often as a group is a really good way to catch that. Because what you could do in that case is, once you find you have a player or two starting to want to leave or in the group, it's like, okay, what does everyone think about wrapping it up? I can jump to the ending. I had another 6 months planned. I could max it out in 2 or something like that. So checking in will help the DM adjust the tone and the tempo of the campaign to better fit the group.
Yeah. Honestly, what I'm doing on Friday nights, it's not quite a forever campaign. I'm just like, one, it's just for a bunch of us to hang out is a big part of it, I think. But I had a bunch of inciting incidents. Most of those are getting resolved, and it's now, okay, what do you want to do in this world? And if the answer is, okay, we've kind of hit our point, we've told our story, I'm fine with that. I think you can kind of play it by ear, but like you said, it's not a bad thing to wrap something up if you've hit an ending. I totally get that. It's when you don't plan for it that it sucks, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, this also is just communication.
Yes.
And nerds, we're not always the best at communicating with one another.
We need rules for communication. Once again, like it comes back up. Like it's easy. We can appeal to the plain text of the rule book.
I need my social contract to be actual text.
Right.
Not an actual contract.
I did want to come back. You guys were talking about how to encourage new DMs, and this isn't quite new DMs, but like we've started playing in person on Thursdays because we found there's a game store that is kind of midpoint between like Knoxville and Athens. I've run a lot of one shots. I tried running a short Fabula Ulta campaign, and I'm like, I can't do 2 campaigns at once. This is not going to work for me. And the thing I've tried to do is like encourage people to open up and run games. Like I'm like, hey, look, man, I've gotten used to learning rules. I will be your training wheels. If there's something you don't understand, I'll run that for you. I'm not going to name names. I guess I shouldn't. One of our friends called me up one day. He's like, I got an idea for an All Gods of Appalachia adventure. I'm like, listen for a little while. I'm like, stop. Don't give me any spoilers. I can teach you how to run Cypher System in 30 minutes. Like all you have to do is like write an outline and put some difficulty numbers in there. That's the type of thing I want to do. I think encouraging new DM or people to DM who haven't DM'd much or haven't DM'd at all, a lot of that is going to be playing that role of filling in the gaps, writing quick reference sheets, things like that.
I want to pause on that.
Okay.
Just because I think that's a future episode.
Which part of that? Encouraging new DMs?
Encouraging and teaching new DMs.
Okay.
Because like I feel like we could probably just like tangent on that one really long, and we'll lose the thread of what we're talking about. Like the topic of the episode. I love that idea though, because I both love and fear playing with a new DM, only because like you're talking about how being able to teach the system and everything. But you also probably don't want to go, actually, you should be doing it this way, or like making sure you don't take the wheel too much from them. So I think that is a rich topic to discuss.
Yeah.
So
I feel like
maybe make it.
I'm bad about that because I will have opinions of how I would have done it. That's not necessarily the right answer. What am I doing?
That's the problem of having someone that only DMs is they never get to play. And playing is a skill. Playing can be harder than DMing in some ways.
Yes.
You have to be a good player. You have to learn to not be the asshole. It's like, well, actually, that would be this role, and you shouldn't have had to roll for this. And really, if you read the rules, you would know better. Like, that takes skill to not be that jerk.
On both sides of the screen, though, it's a question of the rules don't matter so much as the story, and learning to understand where questioning the rules is actually helping the situation at the table, and questioning the rules is like being a distraction.
I would even put another tier above that is the rules don't matter as much as the story, which doesn't matter as much as the player engagement. And when I say player, including the DM in that, it's like this plot element may have just like gone bonkers, but the group is engaged, and that's the goal of the game.
Yeah, and just to get into one of my theories is like the rules are step-by-step instructions of what you do. The actual game experience emerges from that. And what you want to do is develop that skill where you can read a set of rules and translate it into a game experience for people. And that is a tough skill to have, but it is a valuable skill to have at the table. I also wanted to add to what you're saying about being a good player. I've found a lot of cases like games go smoother if I know when I step back from something, like not get too invested in what's going on and like talk to other players at the table and kind of get input from them. And as a player, help put the spotlight on them. Like that's very important. And that can lead to this is also another topic. Some of the best experiences I've had is like sitting back and trying to do that for new players. And then something snaps and they just make a decision and you're like, yes, this is what I wanted.
Yeah, when a new player you have them, they start off and they're very shy about things. Like they're coyly looking at their sheet and be like, okay, well, I don't know. What do I do? What do I roll? Whatever. And then they start saying, like, they start acting. It's like, okay, it's exactly the shit that I'm about. Yes. No, I mean, I guess, we didn't really talk so much about safety tools. I feel like I haven't really had like a direct experience with them other than having the X card there. I think just to go back to what you said in your opening statement, Dylan, is the fact that they're there. What was the phrase you used? The possibility of thinkability or something? It was a funny,
expanding the
interesting
space
phrase.
of the talkaboutable. I stole that from
The
an
talkaboutable.
author named David Dark, who, as far as I know, doesn't do anything gaming related.
But
I think
just
that's
having
good
it there, yeah. Even if you don't use them, I think having it
Yeah.
there is important. The fact that they exist and we've discussed it and they're there, I think goes a long way toward breaching that. Because, like Basil said, we didn't have that growing up. We just
Yeah.
you were expected to show up and roll dice, and if there was hard content, you were supposed to man up and deal with it.
Yeah.
Because that's D&D, baby. This is hard stuff. This ain't no baby game. We're killing goblins.
In fact, the DM being tough on you and like maybe to the point of being unfair was the point of the game, right? Like that was just what you have to do for a real game.
It was definitely more of a animosity kind of built in between player and dungeon master at the time.
I got
And
stories, man. I got stories, but that might be another topic.
I'm fortunate that I haven't had many real problems with some of the dungeon masters I've played with. That's very happy on that front. So yeah, and I think it is really good. I've talked about it already earlier. Is just doing it early lets you remember it. You may not ever have to touch an X card or pipe back up. It's like, hey, this is something that we said we wouldn't cover, because hopefully after discussing it in a session 0 or at some point, we as a party will just remember we don't have to do whatever it is you talked about. We could just not have tight spaces really discussed about. We don't have to feature, violence to kids. It's like that. That's a perfectly reasonable thing to have as a line, and I'm just not going to touch it. So that's having that mindset going into the campaign will just help your players feel better, because they will feel that their concerns are being heard, and they will then feel more open and willing to engage with the group because the group cares about them.
Like I said, at the end of the day, it's all communication.
Yes.
And
again, we're bad at that because we're nerds.
Just
right. Well, everyone being on the same page in the rule booklet, and there you go. Bob's your uncle. That's really what it is. Like, we're these safety tools, and I feel bad because honestly, when Dylan started with his X card, I thought this was a weird Magic the Gathering joke he was saying. And I didn't realize that it was like an actual thing.
It's a real thing. What's weird is
I never heard about it before.
I've
your X card for 3 mana.
I've heard about these for so long, and these were the first tools I'd heard of. I was like, this is just ubiquitous, right? Like everyone knows about this now, and I'm really shocked that people don't.
I do think there is once you get into the rabbit hole of being aware of, I guess, the tabletop RPG industry enough, you start to forget people who aren't aware of like the industry and developments of the industry, and just, I come to play the game, will not catch things like the development of safety tools in the last 5 or 7 years. I do think it's a great innovation. I do think physical props I feel a little hokey with, just because I like I guess the motion of doing it. That's why I do like lines and veils, because it's not necessarily something that you're not using a prop. It's just like, hey, we've had a conversation of stuff we don't want to cover.
X card really only makes sense at a table if you're playing on Discord.
Yeah. There were ways to deal with it. You could just always send the DM as like a private message, like X, like immediately, just something like that.
I think it was kind of meant for like public games, because like you may not know people, but if you bring up spiders, that's only something I think has been more recently broadly accepted as a real thing not to bring up. But it's like, if you have like whatever spider phobia is, arachnophobia, arachnophobia is the word. You could just be like, hey, tap the card at the table at the convention and be like, okay, spiders, not cool, let's move on.
I do still think there's a hesitancy to do that, though, because you don't want to feel like you're ruining the game, or like at least even just putting the brakes on the game for these other people that you don't know. Which, again, that's why I was curious about Dylan's experience, because you've DM'd and run a lot of convention and game shop games. Whereas, like, for me, I run games for usually people I know and can have that conversation. and often have had a session 0. So I've already covered a lot of these topics already.
But even with people you know, and it may not be so much a session 0 as a session 0.1 or 2 or what have you, can still be important. For example, I have a group of friends. They right now predominantly play in the system Redacted. And one of them does not like the system Redacted. And they have tried to say, I do not want to play in Redacted. I am not going to learn Redacted. This is not what I'm going to do. I don't have fun with it. I don't like it. I like being around all you people. I don't like Redacted.
Right.
But they all want to play Redacted. And that is an issue they are currently dealing with. So even if it is like people that you know, sometimes it's good to reestablish a session 0. It's good to reestablish your lines and veils and have an open lines of communication to figure things out.
Yeah,
I completely agree on that front. The more so the point I was wanting to make is in my experience, the people I play with are people that usually I know and know each other kind of mostly well enough that there's not going to be that public hesitancy to pause the game if they want to say, hey, let's not cover this or something. But in a like, I'm going to do a one shot at a convention or some pickup games in my local library or game shop. Like, you may have people that don't want to bring up an issue because they don't want to make these other strangers uncomfortable. Like my example at the beginning about how I just decided not to go to this library game anymore. Like, I didn't bring it up. I finished the session, and sometimes that's an answer, but sometimes you don't want somebody to even just sit there. You want someone to be comfortable enough to go, let's not do this, or you know what, I'm just going to peace out. But because they are in public with strangers, there's some hesitancy built in. And I don't really know a good way to deal with that.
I think one way, if I'm doing a horror game at a convention, I will usually start out by saying, hey, is there anything that'll bother you? If I'm doing when I did the 14 RPG in Ryutama at MomoCon, I don't think I did that because odds are you're not going to find anything. I tend to, with my experience using these things and also mentioning them at conventions, I think they tend to be more of a break glass in case of emergency type of thing with most people, not like, ooh, I feel a little bit uncomfortable, we want to talk about this. That's not to say that can't happen. It's just, I think that's probably the rarer case that you hit on something that's just really, really bad for someone. Because usually, you've got especially at a convention, you've got a description of the game in the booklet somewhere. People know that, if I'm going to sign up for the game about going into the spider's den, I probably shouldn't have arachnophobia, right? If you're signing up for a horror game, it's going to get weird.
And also, a session 0 or like lines and veils and things like that does not have to take long, especially if it's in like a public or convention or a local game store situation, where it can just be like a 5 or 10 minute thing. Like, okay. And if that's, say, if you're Dylan or whomever, you can even plan a little bit ahead where you can go like, all right, here are my lines and veils. Like, I've already printed out for you. These are my things as a GM. This is what I am comfortable doing. This is what I'm not comfortable doing. Is there anything you would like to add?
Yeah. Now that I think about it, there's a couple tools that can actually help with that. Monty Cook has a consent in gaming checklist that has just everything anyone could possibly include. You'll look at some of these things and who is putting that in a game, but it's there. There's something I picked up at MomoCon last year called the Deck of Player Safety. And it's just a deck. It's got some X cards in it. It's got cards that say, I think anything goes, and then lists of different things people have issue with. And the idea is you take the deck, you place at least one card down. It can be anything goes. It can be, a whole stack of things that bother you, and you pass it around. And at the end, everyone shuffles everything up and puts it out front. There's ways to make that go a lot faster that aren't quite having it pre-written, but kind of take some of the blank page syndrome off of it. Because, unless something is just a severe phobia, it might even take you a little while to think about it, honestly. Hey, yeah, if I did run into this, I wouldn't like that.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't have to necessarily be violence or something. You mentioned at the beginning that you're not into like romantic relationships, role-playing romantic stuff between players. And, like for me, like I didn't really thought about that. I've had it happen a couple times and I don't really feel incredibly comfortable with it. I wouldn't say it's a triggering experience for me necessarily.
But it doesn't have to be a triggering experience. It just has to be I'm not going to have fun if I feel like I have to do this. And that's where I'm coming from.
I don't want to have to role play a sexual encounter with one of you people or my friends. Like, we get it. Like, fade to black. The stuff happens, but it's not like you're playing Baldur's Gate 3 where you get to see it.
Right.
We're not doing that. Like, use your imagination, kids.
And for me, it's like, I don't even know that I want to flirt with my friends. That feels weird. Like, I want to.
Some people are into that. Some people totally come to these games for that romantic. They watch, they play Dragon Age or, Baldur's Gate 3, and they want to get down and dirty in the fantasy setting.
Which is fine. I'm cool with other people doing that, but it's like, leave me out of it.
Exactly. Yeah. Like there can be expectations, but like you said, you're having even just shoveling it in a deck together so no one gets called out specifically. If we ever do that and there's ever no romantic thing, I know it's you, Dylan, you've already outed yourself.
Yeah.
It's like, but having it shuffled together means you don't have to feel like you called out in the same way that physically tapping an X card makes you feel like you're the center of attention.
But I also think, like, the way I try to handle these things, and again, I've never really had anything go badly where I've had to. The way I treat that is, I don't want to be the guy who just says, no, absolutely not. I know where my boundaries are on that. Like, I'm fine if other people do it. I just feel weird about me role-playing it. And so then what I can do is, because we're talking about this, because we've opened up this discussion, I can say, if one of you wants to play an NPC, now I can start making deals and we can actually have a conversation about what people want here. And if someone really wants that in their game, I don't want to be the one to say, no, you will not have that in my game at all.
You can write the story and post it to the Discord later. Everyone else to read your juicy fanfic.
We're kind of coming to the end of the time. Does anyone have anything else they want to end on? All right. Hearing nothing, Basil, where can people find you?
Places, internet. I mean, you're already listening to my podcast. Like, this is my, the OSMtable is part of the OSMcast family of podcasts, which include the OSMcast podcast for everything awesome, as well as the Carbuncle Chronicle, your podcast for everything awesome in Final Fantasy XIV. And you can find all of it at our wonderful home, awesomecast.com, where you can find links to all sorts of things, including our Discord for the OSMcast, where we're recording this very podcast right now. You can't join that, but you can join the conversations in text form on our various channels, which include things about tabletop games.
Was it game tabletop type?
Yeah, game. Yeah, tabletop time type.
Game tabletop type.
Anyway, Blue Sky it's Basil time.
Tobias?
Yeah, I'm Tobias. I'm also on Blue Sky as our Tobias. I don't think I have anything really to plug at the moment. That's about it. I'm here.
No, that's not true. As the Carbuncle Chronicle, we're also, in a few months, we're going to a convention, Gateway Fate, where we're both putting on panels. And then, next year we'll be putting at other various panels at various cons throughout the Southeast. So maybe not things plug immediately, but who knows when they're listening to this episode.
Yeah, that's very true. If you're happen to be a Gateway Fate here in October in St. Charles, outside of St. Louis, we'll all be there. So feel free to stop us and talk about whatever tabletop game we've been doing, or Final Fantasy XIV tabletop that we've been doing, or whatever other stuff. But yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Niko?
I won't be there.
That is a long way to go. I won't be there either.
Yeah, it'll be half of this group will be there.
Right.
You can find pretty much everything I do at nicholasqualls.com. I post mostly on Blue Sky. Blue Sky, just look for nicholasqualls.com on Blue Sky and you'll find it. I am also occasionally, about bi-weekly, on another YouTube live cast called Culture Smash. So go to YouTube and look at Culture Smash there usually records Wednesday nights, but we're off this week because we are recording on a Wednesday right now. Letterboxd, I will occasionally post reviews. Everything I do is at nicholasqualls.com. And come to the AwesomeCast Discord and chat with us there.
And you can find me at dylanwolf.com, all my various socials and side projects and stuff at links.dylanwolf.com. And that is us.
Hold up, Dylan. Now, are you the same Dylan Wolf that just got featured on the Dungeon Masters Guild Blue Sky page for your new book, Into the Wilderness? Are you that Dylan Wolf?
It's not new. I think they just highlight random stuff on the DM's Guild. But yes, that in fact happened, and I was very confused when I saw it. It was a very strange experience.
Y'all are listening to a bona fide celebrity.
Yeah. A published celebrity, yeah.
Published author.
Look at this. Look at these pictures.
You have 3 or 4 things published on the DM's Guild, I think?
Yeah. I think it's 4. It might actually be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5
you got
now.
5 if I'm looking. Yeah, look at
prolific.
Wolf's Tome of Minor Artifacts.
Some of it.
We got a regular Matt Mercer over here.
Oh no, please don't. No, I'm not. I don't do the voices. I don't do the I don't know. I don't watch Dimension.
That's
20
old news. He doesn't DM anymore. It's going to be Brandon Lee Mulligan from here on out.
Yeah, we got our own very Brandon Lee Mulligan over here.
Sure, man.
We're like awesome changers.
Awesome changers?
Awesome changers, yeah. What is this? Crown Jewel Heist? Look, for the low price of $5, you get a full adventure from the podcast.
You get
host here.
You get a you get like a 4 or 5 session adventure out of that. I believe I ran that before our current campaign, actually.
That's $1 per adventure. Look at the low price there. You can from a published adventure author.
And I've got even more stuff over on Drive Through RPG, and you can find that on the links I just provided. Yeah, that's us. So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you later. Music goes here.
Yeah, I can't do.
We don't have Kevin to do it.
Well, it's Dylan's playing guitar. Is the OSMtable music because it was from the Awesome Quest. So it's blum 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 blum.
That's overselling it by a lot. Anyway,
I mean, let's go get it. It's right behind you.
I had to edit that thing so much. I had to line up every note. Anyway, thanks everyone for watching, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
You mean listening?
Listening.
See you later.
So thanks everyone for listening.
Put these videos up on YouTube as a Patreon bonus, maybe.
I'm not taking a video. Let me re-record that.
Re-record the whole episode.
No.
Start at the top.
Brum, 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 brum.
So thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see you later.
Bye, everybody.
Okay.
Again, you said see you later. We're not going to see anybody.
Okay, I'm not getting it to that level of technicality.
All right, let me roll to see how well therapy worked. I rolled a 10. I don't know what that, so it may or may not have worked. It's kind of a 50-50.
Dylan therapy and Tobias therapy. When are we going to get?
Oh yeah, we got to roll that. Oh, an 8. So not Tobias therapy didn't go as well. I'm sorry.
Never does. It never does.